Coming up on the Nexus, Benjamin Netanyahu delighted as pro-Israel billionaires win control of TikTok in America.
They want to control what we see, what we say, and what we're able to do.
Hello and welcome to the Nexus. I'm Matthew Moore. Israel's Prime Minister has told American influencers that social media is now the most important battlefield. And so this week, we're looking at the new pro-Israel owners of TikTok and how they might change the platform, assuming their deal goes through, of course.
$14 billion is going to buy Israel's influence.
This was not a conspiracy to somehow push the app towards Israel.
October 7th happens and Israel invades Gaza, and all of a sudden now TikTok is back on the market.
More from them in a moment, but first here's a look at TikTok's new owners in America.
TikTok's US operations are being broken up on the face of it because of concerns that the Chinese-owned app's harvesting of American citizens' data poses a threat to US national security. But there's more to it.
I'm a little prejudiced with TikTok because, I did so well with the young voter.
Up for grabs is TikTok's ability to influence young people, especially on issues like Palestine. It's often described as a pro-Palestinian network.
Gaza is starving and they need our help.
Benjamin Netanyahu has made no secret of his desire to control TikTok, saying, "We have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefield in which we're engaged, and the most important ones are in social media, and the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok. TikTok #1. So no surprise then that the main movers of the consortium who will control TikTok America share a long history of supporting Israel. The main investor is Oracle's Larry Ellison, the world's second richest person at the time of writing, a major Trump ally, and someone described as the single biggest private donor to the Israeli military. Oracle also works closely on Israeli military projects, including those being used in Gaza and the West Bank.
I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
Also on board is Michael Dell, CEO of Dell Technologies, seen here with the Israeli president. Dell described his company, which has long been a key supplier to Israel's military sectors, as being deeply committed to Israel. Activists have also alleged he's donated to Israel's military. Other key members are media magnate Rupert Murdoch and his son and heir apparent Lachlan Murdoch. They own Fox News, which has been accused of pro-Israeli bias. The exact structure of TikTok America is yet to be fully confirmed, but it's thought that Oracle, along with the closely linked private equity fund Silver Lake, will join with Abu Dhabi-based investment fund MGX as the main investors, taking 45% of the company. The Murdochs, Dell and other US investors will control between 25 and 30% of the new company, and interestingly, Chinese owner ByteDance will retain around 19.9%, making it by far the biggest minority investor. However, the devil is in the detail. It appears that TikTok America is being split in two. The Chinese-based parent company will still control revenue-generating business operations like e-commerce and advertising, and taking much of the profit in the process. But tellingly, the app's data, content, and most importantly, the algorithm will fall under the control of the US-backed and pro-Israel consortium members. The power of the algorithm to control what people hear and see is what really counts.
This deal really does mean that Americans can use TikTok, but actually use it with more confidence than they had in the past, because their data is going to be secure and it's not going to be used as a propaganda weapon against our fellow citizens.
Or maybe if the deal goes through, the propaganda will just become more acceptable to Washington and its allies.
Well, that's the suspicion, and we're about to hear from our panel in just a moment. But first, the view from a professor at the Internet Governance Project. He's read the small print and he's quite concerned.
So the court looked at the government's rationale for the law, and there were two of them. One of them was that China could be covertly manipulating content using the algorithm. And the other was that China would have access to lots of data about American citizens and how they use TikToks. Well, the Supreme Court said that the first rationale about covert content manipulation was not a constitutional valid reason for the law. And so they basically threw that out. They said that the data argument, the concerns about data and the privacy of Americans being compromised by a foreign power, that was a valid reason because it was content neutral. You're not trying to tilt speech in any way or the other. But when we look at the TikTok deal that's been announced in the executive order, we're seeing that the agreement is giving the government control over the content recommendation algorithm of TikTok. The problem is that it gives a government-approved partner control over the content recommendations of the algorithm. That in effect, they're trying to regulate speech on TikTok through this deal. That's the big problem. Now, the other problem is, the group of people that are being given control seem to be very much tied to the state of Israel and very likely to bias expression on TikTok in ways that that people who hold that position would find acceptable.
Okay, let's bring in our panel. And today we are joined by Matthew Bartlett, a State Department appointee in Trump's first administration, KELLEY VLAHOS, editorial director for Responsible Statecraft, and tech reporter Matt Binder. Welcome to the program, everyone. Matthew Bartlett, probably more than anyone else on this panel, you actually think this is overall a good deal for America?
Yeah, I think that's right. We're in a far better place. And just as a reminder, I was at the State Department in the first administration when we proposed banning TikTok because of the national security, the data, the privacy, a suite of ramifications. Now we have seen, a proposed sale of this Chinese social media app, which would bring in, again, Western American influences, the private sector. Nothing is perfect, but you are far better protected from free speech to privacy with this deal than having the Chinese Communist Party being a part of this powerful social media app. So again, I think we're in a far better place right now.
Matthew, you're worried, or were worried, that a foreign government had tremendous influence over this app, which is used by so many young people in America. Others would argue you've exchanged China for Israel here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a notion of Israel controlling. Again, this is not a state entity transfer. You have people like Ellison, you have Rupert Murdoch, Michael Dell involved. So again, it seems as if the private sector will once again lead on this. Of course, where's the private sector motives? Based on its making money more than anything. So I think that's probably a good thing to keep it nonpartisan, follow where the people are, and let the private markets continue to decide. I don't think this is, pushing it towards one state or another or one party or political ideology. Rather, we're retreating from that with China and, again, putting this into private sector hands.
Okay, Kelly, you've just written an article how Israel has won TikTok. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid I don't agree with Matthew. I look at the roster of billionaires who are reportedly behind this takeover of TikTok for $14 billion. Experts are saying this sounds like a fire sale. This does not sound like a financial windfall for these billionaires, or given that TikTok or Twitter was sold for quadruple that amount. This $14 billion is going to buy Israel's influence in American culture. And I disagree with Matthew because several of the people on this roster, including Larry Ellison, including his right hand at Oracle CEO Safra Catz, including Rupert Murdoch, have been complaining for the last 2.5 years that the mainstream media is too pro-Palestinian, is anti-Israel. They wanted to shut down TikTok a year ago because of what they said was an anti-Israel bent. Now you have a roster of billionaires, including the three that I mentioned, but also folks like Jeffrey Yass, who have spent enormous amounts of money trying to promote pro-Israel messaging, whether it be in the the media here in the United States, but also forming up campaigns against protesters on college campuses and anti-Semitism campaigns throughout the country since October 7th.
Matthew Bartlett?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there were several people that tried to bid on this social media app. This was not a conspiracy to somehow push the app towards Israel.
Matt, let me just tap into your understanding of the internet world. The retraining of the algorithm that they say they're going to do, what does that mean?
The content moderation on this new TikTok is going to be really what they control. And that will include, sort of using that algorithm, but, retraining it or manipulating it in a way that better benefits or, what they want to put on this new U.S. version of TikTok. It is sort of really interesting how, Matthew was talking about how, they'll let the private markets decide. I mean, the federal government here, specifically Trump's administration, stepped in and forced another company to sell. That doesn't sound like the private market to me. But the U.S. government stepped in and forced a enterprise to sell to a certain number of investors. And the Trump administration had to have the final say of which investors were going to be approved. Otherwise, TikTok would still be banned.
Come in, Matthew. Let's just have Matthew.
So really what we...
Yes, because the app, if you are a company in China, you are not, if you're a big business, you are not private business. You have a communist party represented in your company. So yes, you are correct that the federal government got involved because this was not, let's be clear, this was not just a private company in China. It goes hand in hand with communism and the political party there. You have to acknowledge that. And again, I was at the State Department when we first proposed a ban, and the entire mainstream media said that Trump was trying to ban TikTok because they were making fun of him. And this was the act of an authoritarian. It's always some sort of preposterous, crazy argument. Let's deal in reality here. This was a Chinese social media app. There are legitimate concerns here.
Well, I just wanted to say that, Larry Ellison, he's going to be leading the consortium that will have a whopping 40% stake in this new TikTok, is the biggest private donor to the Israeli Defense Forces. He has called Israel his country. His right-hand woman, Safra Katz, has said that she wants to embed love for Israel and respect for Israel in American culture and to get to kids before they hit college campuses. These are ideologically driven owners of TikTok. This is not about Trump controlling it because he doesn't like how he platformed there. This is about one ideologically driven agenda that just is about to take over TikTok. And we can't ignore that the Israeli government itself, Benjamin Netanyahu, just said within a week ago that TikTok is their major weapon for influencing the American people to harness support for Israel.
Now, that's a very good point, Kelly, and it's pretty clear that Benjamin Netanyahu is worried about the big conservative influencers who are turning against Israel. Let's take a look at that in this short report, and then I'll come back to you with a question.
These people are considered America's biggest conservative influencers. They all claim to support the president and most of his policies, but when it comes to Israel, they're split. Sometimes called paleo-conservatives, this group is not against Israel per se, but they do want America to stop funding and arming it.
What you're now describing, in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No. We've given them $150 billion. They've taken weapons from us. They're hiding their nuclear weapons, pretending that they don't have them.
I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of America getting involved in it. I'm sick of our tax dollars funding it.
This group, some call the neoconservatives or neocons, think that Israel deserves all the support it needs.
The existence of the state of Israel is the single greatest guarantor of my loyalty to the United States, frankly.
You have the woke right now. A lot of these people who are attacking President Trump and saying he's not America first and, calling him out, saying that he's a puppet for Israel, people that are just bad-mouthing him, they owe their entire career to Donald Trump.
So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel? What's our backup plan to be strong, outside the diaspora?
Well, Matthew Bartlett, to that question, Benjamin Netanyahu replied, it's social media. That is the big battleground right now. TikTok is the #1 weapon. Just explain, if you could, why it's important to have TikTok and why it's important to carry on connecting with young evangelical Christians in the United States.
I think it is actually important to have that dialogue, to have better understanding so that we do not have very, very sensitive, complex issues driven into wild conspiracy theory territory. It is part of any government's approach to explaining themselves on the global stage, and there's tremendous upside to that.
Matt Binder, I think what Matthew Bartlett's saying is that every government around the world would like to operate on the social media battleground, and therefore it is necessary for Israel to do that themselves.
I think it's interesting that that sort of notion is rolled out for other countries like Israel and Saudi Arabia, who have, murdered journalists. But China, no. The U.S. State Department the U.S. government has to step in and remove them from any sort of equation.
Aren't you ignoring the obvious, which Matthew Bartlett would no doubt say, which is that Israel's an ally and China is the massive foe?
The fact of the matter is that this wasn't the TikTok ban issue was rolling out under Trump's first term, and then Trump administration forget about it. And then TikTok, I had sources there who were telling me how they were running around towards the end of Trump's term trying to figure out, is the ban going through? They don't even care anymore. What's going on? Are we still an app? Are we still able to run here? And then the October 7th happens and Israel invades Gaza, and all of a sudden now TikTok is back on the market in terms of we got to ban this app. In 2023, you have Congress people like Senator Josh Hawley sending a letter to the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen at the time, that we have to ban TikTok specifically because of the anti-Israel sentiment that's going on this app. You heard Congress people when the TikTok CEO went to Capitol Hill for a hearing. They weren't talking too much about China. They were obsessed more so with Israel and how young people were responding to pro-Palestinian content on there. I mean, obviously the China issue did come up, but just as much as Israel. The question now is this is going through now when it didn't go through before, and the big difference is we are now in a post, Israel invading Gaza,
Matthew Bartlett, come in for a final.
What is a genocide, and now the people of the United States, especially young people, feel very differently about Israel than they did prior to October 7th, 2023.
Yeah, listen, with all due respect, I think that's a myopic vision here. You're right. The TikTok ban started in the first administration. And then let's remember, we're in the middle of a government shutdown, meaning both parties can't even agree to keep the lights on for the federal government. Yet what happened in the Biden administration? Republicans, Democrats, House and Senate all moved in mass to ban TikTok. Let me tell you, it was not because of some phony issue around Israel. It's because there are legitimate national security issues related to TikTok. This is why we're in this place. This is why it was a notion of ban it or sell it. And now the Trump administration has forged a deal. Let's be crystal clear about where we are, and let's not try to make this about something that this certainly isn't.
Okay, we're going to have a final word from Kelly.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate here, this isn't just about TikTok. We talked about Netanyahu calling TikTok a weapon, but it's a weapon in an arsenal. And Israel is spending millions of dollars as we speak on influencers, paying them upwards of $7,000 a post, paying firms here in the United States to distribute pro-Israel content all over streams, to help AI learn pro-Israel content throughout the ChatGPT orbit. This is a massive foreign influence effort. TikTok is just one piece of that. And if we don't recognize that for what it is and stop ignoring the obvious, then we as American consumers are going to be massively duped. And what are the stakes? The stakes are a war in which the United States has sent billions of dollars of weapons to engage in a full slaughter of more than 66,000 people in Gaza, a war that needs to end. Those are the stakes.
Kelly VLAHOS, Matt Binder, and Matthew Bartlett, thank you all very much for your contributions today. Really appreciate that. Let's look at the power of TikTok now, especially on young minds. And roughly 1 in 5 people around the world use the application. That's about 1.59 billion out of a global population of 8 billion. Its biggest market is in the United States, where 6 out of 10 teenagers use the platform, some for many hours a day. Some people are worried about the content on the platform. For example, the Bin Laden letter to the American people, which went viral in 2023.
I need you to stop what you're doing and go read A Letter to America.
The actions of 9/11 and those acts committed against the USA and its people were all just the buildup of our government failing other nations.
Tonight, TikTok pulling content off its platform after videos promoting Osama bin Laden's letter to America started gaining momentum.
Okay, I'm joined now by Anna LEMBKE, a professor of psychiatry at Stanford University. Welcome to the program again, Anna. Let me ask you, how powerful are these social media platforms, especially TikTok, when it comes to changing the way young people view the world?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And social media, especially TikTok, because it's so incredibly popular among young people, has an absolutely massive influence on what they think about the world. In the United Kingdom alone, 3/4 of young people use TikTok, and about 1/4 of UK youth rely on TikTok as their primary news source. So it's got a huge influence.
Obviously, the United States, the Trump administration, was concerned about the Chinese using it, potentially to shape young American minds. And now it looks like it's being transferred, the American operation anyway, to a number of pro-Israel billionaires. So in terms of a tool of propaganda, what makes it so powerful?
TikTok really is a drug. It lights up the same reward pathway as traditional drugs and alcohol. It releases dopamine in that reward pathway. Dopamine is our pleasure neurotransmitter. And the upshot of all of that is that the human brain will be incredibly engaged with the platform, not because it's a source of knowledge or wisdom or frankly even news, but because it feels good. And that feeling good will encourage further consumption. And then, of course, the algorithm is really designed to feed people what other people have watched. So it's not designed to give us the most important or erudite or wise information. It's really designed to have us watch what other people are watching, which, by the way, is also pleasing to our brains because we want to be in the know. As human beings, we want to feel like we're doing what other people are doing because we're innately social creatures. So there's a huge problem with that, in that it feels like we're getting news or facts or we're learning, but in fact, all we're really doing is tickling our own reward pathway.
And another expert has told me that not only is it pleasing, but the most popular content is often the most outrageous content that upsets you the most.
Yes, exactly. That's an excellent point. So things that are highly violent or distressing actually also release dopamine in the brain's reward pathway, because dopamine is the neurotransmitter of novelty and attention. It's the thing that says, hey, what's happening in the environment right now is important to your survival. You should go check it out. So it doesn't need to be something that's like a bunch of kitty cats, playing on the carpet for it to engage our reward pathway and engage our minds. In fact, highly violent, aggressive, angry, polarizing types of content is very engaging for our brains.
The US government has gone through great lengths to protect Americans from propaganda. That's one of the stated reasons for forcing this sale. Shouldn't they also be going to great lengths to stop the addictiveness of these platforms for the benefit of those young minds?
Absolutely. And you've really hit the nail on the head of the primary problem here. If all we're concerned about is privacy and we're not focusing on the addictive nature of the platforms, then we are really, missing the most important element here. And it's true that policies to enforce privacy are sometimes orthogonal to policies related to protecting young minds from the addictive nature of the platforms. But these corporations and the people who profit from them have intentionally designed these platforms to optimize for watch time. That is, the entire AB algorithm has been researched to keep us engaged, to take up our time independent of content.
Anna Lembke, thank you very much. That made a lot of sense. Really appreciate that. Thank you. That's all from The Nexus. Until next week then, goodbye.